At about 1:15 am on February 26, 2019, 20 fully armed Mirage 2000 fighter aircrafts took off one by one in quick succession from the runway and taxiway of the Air Force Station at Gwalior. They flew towards Bareilly and tanked up mid-air, then headed towards Jammu and Kashmir. At about 3:45 am, the fighters, which were flying in the cover of mountains to escape a Pakistani Saab airborne warning and control aircraft, crossed the line of control at 30,000 feet. While 16 aircrafts crossed into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, including 4 for escort duties, 4 others stayed behind as backup. 5 Israeli-made Spice 2000 bombs were released about 15 kilometers into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which struck the Jaish-e-Mohammed camp at Jabba Top outside the city of Balakot in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and the fighters made their way back to an airfield in the western sector. However, 4 Mirages, armed with Mica RF and IR air-to-air missiles, stayed back until the other 12 aircrafts made their way back into Indian airspace, lest Pakistan fighters engaged. The entire ops, from the aircraft entering POK and landing back in India, lasted about 21 minutes. The choice of target and execution came with a lot of planning and intelligence inputs. It was important to send a message to Pakistan that India will not tolerate any more attacks like Pulwama. At about 3:15 pm on 14 February 2019, a suicide bomber rammed his explosive-laden SUV into a convoy of the CRPF in Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama, killing 40 personnel. At 6 pm, the then Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa, called Air Marshal Hari Kumar, who was the then Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Critical Western Air Command and was scheduled to retire that month, and asked him if he was ready. They both knew that the government would not take this audacious attack lying down. Air Marshal Kumar replied saying he was ready. The following morning, Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa drove down to Western Air Command near the cantonment to discuss the possible options and plans. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had called for a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security at 9 am on 16th February. Later, it was decided that the Indian Air Force will carry out the strike since the Pakistan Army had put itself on high alert, fearing a repeat of the 2016 surgical strike by ground elements. On the morning of 18th February, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval called for a meeting that was attended by the chiefs of the Army, Air Force, Navy, and the RAW. Attending the meeting was also key RAW operational man Samant Goel. There were highly credible intelligence inputs that Pakistan had withdrawn terrorists from launch pads and training camps at the LOC and moved them into centers located deeper. The Balakot camp was the perfect target. It was on a hilltop and there were no civilians nearby, which meant there would be no collateral damage. Moreover, since it was not a madrasa, this meant that there won't be any children. Only large number of terrorists were there. It was at this meeting that the Indian Air Force was given the target and the go-ahead to plan. Only a few in the IAF knew about the impending attack. Balakot was the first time that the Indian Air Force was being used to attack outside Indian territory after the 1971 war. Secrecy was the utmost important thing, because surprise is always the biggest factor in an attack. Only 4 officers were involved in the initial planning, including Air Marshal Hari Kumar and the Air Force Chief. Such was the secrecy that even though the aircraft flew out of the Gwalior base, which falls under the Central Air Command, The AOC in C of the command was not aware of the ops until just a few hours before the fighters actually took off. Air Marshal Kumar briefed the pilots in person about the operation when he dashed to Gwalior under the garb of a farewell dinner. To ensure that no eyebrows were raised over the sudden activity in Gwalior, an inspection by Directorate of Air Staff Inspection, an official inspecting body of the IAF, was ordered. Anytime a DASI has to be done, the entire base goes on a complete overdrive to ensure that everything is in place. It was also ensured that no communication was carried out over unsecured channels, including mobile phones. To keep Pakistan guessing, the Western Air Command also advanced the timing of an exercise. The IAF had selected the 900 kg 2000 penetration bomb and crystal maze missile for the operation. Just like in actual ops, the highly accurate Spice 2000 was pre-fed with GPS coordinates and an image of the Balakot camp on the simulator. The Spice 2000 uses a digital scene matching area correlator technology, which automatically matches the target as it zooms in with the image that has been pre-fed besides the GPS coordinates. The hit on the simulator was a success, but for a proper battlefield damage assessment, the IAF had also intended to fire the crystal maze that comes with a camera that relays back live feed of the target as it closes in until the actual hit. However, the missile could not be fired due to certain firing protocols that has been changed now. Classified high-resolution military satellite images procured from friendly countries showed that at least 2 JEM structures were hit by the Indian Air Force in Balakot. With some media speculation taking place about the possible options before the government, a deliberate attempt was made to ensure that everything looked normal. So, a farewell that was planned for Air Marshal Kumar went off as scheduled. It took place on 25th February at the sprawling Akash Mess in Delhi, where besides Air Chief Marshal Dhanoa, 80 other senior officers were in attendance. Due to a lot of speculation on television channels and the social media, Pakistan had also started focusing on the possibility of an air attack. At that time, speculation was deliberately spread that the JEM headquarters in Bahawalpur could be an option. When the Mirages were nearing the line of control, the Pakistani Saab AWACS, which was in the air, seemed to have picked up the fighters and 2 Pakistani aircraft was scrambled. At that time, a group of Jaguars in the Rajasthan sector was asked to move towards the border, giving the impression that the aircraft was headed to Bahawalpur. The Pakistani AWACS quickly moved further away, and the F-16 fighters that had been scrambled were diverted to that location along with others. It was at this moment when the Mirages entered and did their job well. As for the damage inflicted, the two sides have given different versions, with IAF saying the targets were hit and JEM Balakot facility was destroyed, while the Pakistanis claim the bombs killed a few trees. The Times of India, citing National Technical Research Organisation Intelligence, reported on March 12 that 263 JEM recruits were stationed at the Balakot camp when the Indian Air Force struck. However, what was not under doubt was that by striking Balakot, India had sent a clear message that it would make it unaffordable for Pakistan to continue fostering terror. History will tell whether the Balakot strike was the game changer India needed to get Pakistan to mend its ways.